Okay, after we do this. Okay, currently it is, I think, probably just about 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I haven't slept since 5, like I woke up at like around 5 a.m. yesterday. No, 2 days ago, 5 a.m. And then I was up until 5 a.m. because I had to do laundry. And then I currently had like a few winks of sleep. And I'm doing this video to outline interpersonal skills, what they are, and why it's important. Okay, a lot of people dismiss it. They think they're gonna build these skills naturally and they don't have to work at it. Also, some man was very nice and he bought me a coffee and a bagel. But just to clarify, sometimes you can't build a relationship. Oh yeah, that's my computer sleeve, and also press it. Okay, you can't build relationships on your own by yourself, and the reason is that it takes two people to be in a relationship. Whether it be a friendship, whether it be like a good, healthy sibling relationship, your neighbors, all that kind of stuff. It takes a certain amount of time, and it does take a certain amount of effort, and it requires, okay, this is mandatory, two people to be involved. You can't just initiate and expect that person to be accepting of your thing. Like, just because you continually initiate, it's called harassing somebody. Okay, if that person's not responding to you, or you can't really tell, I say just back off a little bit and see if that person wants to go and talk to you, or is gonna reciprocate by seeking you out, and it's in a positive way. Okay, if that person was already bothered by you initially approaching them, then they're gonna respond back to you in a negative way, most likely. Some people, they just ignore it. They will just ignore you, or they will just be dismissive of you. But some people are like that even though they enjoy your company. So that's the type of personality they have. That's like a personality trait. So it's kind of hard to tell if you can't get a good read on that person's personality type and who they are as a person. There's a few clues, but don't go in with assuming that you know everything about that person unless you've actually known this person for a very long time. That would be the only exception. Like, if you've known this person since they were kids, or you haven't met for a few years, or maybe a few decades even, but you knew them because you went to school with them, you grew up in the same neighborhood together, you used to be friends when you guys were younger or in your high school years, that person is not going to be a different person. They might actually change in their behavior patterns. They might have changed in their appearance depending on if they underwent cosmetic surgery or had a haircut or what have you. But that person is still the same person that you met years ago. So if you didn't really get a good reading on them or didn't get to know them very well then it would be probably hard for you to try to get to know them without getting kind of biased about it, right? As you get older, people get very, very opinionated the older they get, I've noticed. Kids, they don't really have that many opinions. They don't really care that much. I mean, adults have a lot of opinions. Kids typically don't. But kids complain more than adults do, which is odd, I think. I would think that more opinions you have, more that you would complain. But no. I guess having opinions reduces the amount of complaining. Social theory. Psychological theory. I don't know how I'm supposed to test that one out, but yeah. Interpersonal skills. So this is building on relationships that you are currently in, or you're hoping to achieve, or trying to mend or repair relationships that have gone sour. It's a very key skill and something that people go to seminars for all the time, especially for work colleagues, how to build your better relationship with your boss, with your co-workers, how to like team building skills, that kind of stuff. You know, that's called interpersonal skills. And it's something a lot of people scoff at and they dismiss it just because they're like, I already know how to communicate and make friends and socialize. Like, I didn't think there was one thing that I need to work more on. But the thing is, like any skill, you need to actively be consciously aware of what you're doing and what the goal in mind is. So if you're practicing an instrument, the goal in mind is to, for me, because I was taught violin and piano, they're two different instruments, but always a goal in mind when I was playing or starting a piece was to be able to read the notes and understand the key signatures or like the scale that it's in, right? So the scale of the piece is going to determine how it should be played, and based on the composer, the amount of kind of like leeway you have in the expression of how you interpret their piece, that kind of stuff. So it's always my first goal is to always read the entire score thoroughly and be able to play along with it based on what it's written, right? And when I get that down pat, then that's when I start paying attention to, because I know which notes to play. So now I'm focusing on how to play those notes. So that's me, this is me practicing piano, and when I was playing or getting taught violin, the same thing too. So they're both string instruments, by the way. One's just a string that's been drummed against, and the other one you actually have to stroke it yourself. That's the only difference between the two instruments. People don't realize this. The only actual key instrument is the organ, and not a lot of people play the organ or the harpsichord for that matter. But actually, it's built like a piano. So yeah, the organ is the only instrument that's like actually just key, and then it's kind of like a brass instrument, but not really. Mechanics are different, and different type of metals are used. So definitely not a brass instrument, but piano, closer to strings actually. But yeah, if you've ever read like the composer score, they list every single section and every single instrument and their notes. So the composer, the conductor at the front, who like has a little stick and keeps people to the tempo, so he can hear when they're off tempo or anything. He can see that which one's playing wrong notes just based on just one glance of it, and they're really good at sight reading and speed reading, that kind of stuff. It doesn't take me that long to be able to read a piece or score, but the problem is like memorizing it, and that gets a little trickier when I have to incorporate how I should play and what the interpretation of that composition is, especially in relation to my life or the type of things that I want to say or how I feel about the piece based on my experience or my educational background, right? And that gets a little more complex, but that's kind of why each pianist or each violinist has their own like signature, like it's distinct the way they play, and people can recognize, oh, I know who's playing, even though they're all playing the same score, same notes, same like the same scale, everything, but the way they play and the way they express how they play the score is always going to be a little different based on the musician. This is for classical music. I don't know what it's like for contemporary or modern music. So this is what I was trained in. Apparently a lot of pianists hate their piano teachers. Like, all of them feel the same way about the piano teachers, but it's not because they were like seriously abusive or there's something wrong with them, which was the case with my piano teacher, which is why I hated her. But it actually helped me with my reading and like playing pieces, because I typically stay away from pieces that all my dislikes and likes have something to do with the validity of that person, or like, you know, like I don't like things that are bad. I like things that are good. That's basically how I that's how I kind of like formed my own personal preferences based on learning from her. So that was my little thingy. But anyway, interpersonal skills. So interpersonal skills are the building blocks to any sort of group work. Okay, it's a lot of people, this is where it gets kind of tricky for some people, which is they don't know when to cut the relationship or when to continue to improve the relationship, right? Because not all relationships are salvageable, and there's definitely, it's not always one person's fault, it could be both parties' fault, right? And sometimes like it just, you guys just, there's no way for you to continue being in each other's lives anymore. And that's a little like, I guess it gets disheartening for some people. They don't like to even hear about or think about the idea about not having the same friends that they used to, or losing friends and having to make new ones, or like not keeping in contact with the same people that they used to know. Like it gives them a sense of stability and security, right? But don't fret, I guess. People's relationships change over time consistently because there's other things happening in the world, and they are suited to adjust accordingly, right? It's like, okay, so I have a job, my career, and according to my career, it requires me to be able to get along with my colleagues, right? And sometimes their preferences and their tastes change, and I adjust accordingly. So I go along with their preferences and their tastes because I'd like to have an easier time at work because I love my work, right? So I do that. So I like to work, I like to shop for work, and I like to work along with my colleagues because I consider them to be my colleagues. That kind of stuff. When that kind of stuff is like a key role in somebody's life, they're gonna have to change some of their preferences and their priorities in the other aspects of their life, specifically their personal life, right? So let's say like, because this is something their colleagues are trying to do and this is stuff that they're promoting at work, they're gonna kind of orient themselves towards that particular item or service, and that might impact their hobbies, or most likely they're just very superficial things such as clothing and restaurants and all that kind of stuff, and the timetables. Like, so now they're on a different time schedule, right? That kind of stuff. So that kind of change might affect somebody's relationship with another person, which is very, very common. What I've noticed was that people don't know what a healthy relationship is. A lot of people don't. And I think that's a huge problem. A healthy relationship is all relationships are mutually beneficial, but it ends up hurting or preventing the other person from being able to move forward or climb up the social ladder, so to speak, right? Okay, so if you're friends with somebody and they only want to be friends with you, and the only reason you guys are friends is so that you guys can get really drunk every weekend, right? Then that's kind of bad for both of you, right? Because it's not healthy, and that's the only reason you guys hang out, so you guys can go out and get drunk. That's not a healthy relationship. That's a toxic relationship, actually. But that's, again, interpersonal skills. When you get away from doing those activities with that person and start doing different activities, or start kind of relating to each other based on your hobbies and your personal interests, then it gets a lot easier to see how you can improve that relationship and how healthy you can work alongside each other. How healthily? No, like how well, in a healthy way, not in an unhealthy way, such as you meet this person and you guys like to talk trash about each other, and it stresses both of you out, and both of you hate each other at the end of it, and then you give it some more time, when you get stressed out, you do the same thing again. That's still very unhealthy. That is not a good way to maintain or establish a relationship, because eventually one or both of you are gonna get tired of that and tired of each other. Yeah, and honestly, people also forget, not people, like a lot of people forget, relationships are very important to people. So they consider themselves to be like social circles are very, very important for a lot of people. And the fact that a lot of people aren't in a lot of people do everything to maintain or establish a social life, right? And that kind of stuff is hard to do if you have no interpersonal skills, and the interpersonal skills being how do I make sure that my mom and I don't end up yelling at each other, or how can I get my dad to start actually enjoying his time with me, or how can me and my siblings do things without causing problems or getting into trouble, right? Like that kind of stuff. Like, how can we do this, and how can we maintain and still have a good, like, still like each other and still have a healthy opinion of each other and still want to be near each other, but in a healthy way, right? Like, in a non-toxic, non-oppressive, non-like forced way. And that's something that you have to decide right off the bat on your own. Is this relationship salvageable? Number one, like, can I do something, and is it gonna affect the relationship and the other person? Even if it doesn't affect the other person, is it gonna improve our relationship? Or number two, do I even want to do it, or do I need to do it? Either or. So if you know right off the bat, okay, this, no matter what I do, even if I just, you know, like, lavish them with gifts and always compliment them and make sure that I'm always there at every beck and call, they're still not gonna improve the relationship, right? That person is not gonna, that's still not gonna improve the relationship. That person's not going to reciprocate, nor is our time spent together any beneficial for either of us, right? It's like enabling both of us, that kind of stuff. So if that's the case, then this is the maturity part kicking in, okay? You have to be able to say as an adult, I'm sorry, but I don't think we're friends anymore. Or, like, you can say, like, I just don't think this relationship is continuable or something. Just like, I don't think there's any way for us to continue being friends, or any way for us to like this relationship has already like reached its like end point, that kind of stuff. Like we spent a really good last how many years together, and I can't live with myself if I knew that I couldn't improve or do anything about it. And I think it's really unhealthy for both of us to continue to do this with each other. And I know on TV they always romanticize it and always have it being shown between two romantically or sexually involved people, and that's their attempt at telling people, okay, that these people are very close to each other. They're very close. Okay, they spend a lot of time together. That means they're very close. So that's what they're trying to portray on the media. But in reality, this could be from anywhere from your niece to your nephew to your uncle's neighbor, that kind of stuff. Like that, it's that kind of stuff still happens between people of that like social distance kind of thing. So again, if you know that it's salvageable and it's something that you really feel that but you want to or you need to do, then I suggest you go ahead and do so, and never ever have a reason. This is like, materialistic things are not a reason to continue a relationship. I mean, that's a very strained relationship. A lot of people may not recognize this, but if your relationship is based on financial exchange, it's very strained. That means neither of you actually care about each other, and you're only fulfilling legal obligations, which can be fine if the two people like each other. But if you guys don't actually like each other, or there's nothing really in common between the two of you, then it's a very, very strained relationship, and it would stress the both of you out. Don't forget that you shouldn't mistake a strained relationship with the no relationship. So the things that you can do to improve your relationship is changing the activities that you do together, right? So like, maybe if you go to the restaurant, instead of, you know, making fun of the other patrons or like kind of giving shit to the employees because you've been a regular for how many years, maybe you can kind of change the pace a little bit and go there to kind of like look at the scenery, you know, try to discuss something different than what other people are wearing. That would be great, I think. I think that might not be the healthiest way to spend time with somebody, but at the very least, you know, on the bright side, you guys are spending time together. Always better than not doing that, I think. Not sure. But yeah, another thing is that it takes time. Please give it a lot of time. Initially, a lot of people, they like to see, well, I don't know, I don't call it return on investment, but like the ROI, return on investment, almost immediately, right? They put a certain amount of time and effort and sometimes money into a project, and they're expecting like very high stakes, very high returns, right? But like almost immediately. So I'm talking about like 1 to 2 months. Like that's not enough time for you to see a really good change in the relationship. And if you're continually working at it, you might not even notice it until like years down the road, and you're like, wow, my relationship with this person has definitely improved, which is always a good thing. Ugh, I gotta blow my nose. I have allergies, and I also think I have a little bit of a cold, like a head cold. I'm a little concerned about that. Also, I think I need to take some caffeine or something. And not caffeine, Advil. But yeah, so keep working at it. Again, if you're not really sure if you can improve the relationship, but you really like being with this person, or you really like that person, or you really want to keep that relationship, I say just try doing what you can to maintain and establish a relationship. Not established, because I'm assuming that you've already established the relationship, like the reason for the two of you being near each other, right? The only thing that's keeping the two of you talking to each other, that's the established part. What is the reason, the valid reason why you guys are talking to each other? Even when you establish that part, right? If you want to maintain it and improve it from that point forward, it's always doable. Like, don't give up so easily. But if you can't tell if it's salvageable or not, because you have to be a little savvy about that. Some people aren't very savvy about that, and this is where gender roles come into play, where men typically just don't like to give up on their relationships, whereas women will. And this is kind of where the whole feminism and then the men versus women thing comes in. But it's very manly for you to be able to stick it through something, right? So you stick through some things, you do your best to improve your things that you already have, and try to like protect your valuables and guard what's yours, which is your relationship, right? And also to say that you made the right choices, and it wasn't a mistake for you guys to even meet each other or have a relationship. That kind of stuff is considered manly. Whereas a womanly thing would be, I understand that time has passed and things have changed, and if it doesn't help the both of us and none of us are happy or neither of us like each other, then why even bother? I think it'll be healthier if you just cut it off. Yeah, that's the thing. Right? That's the man and woman difference. But anyway, I'm not trying to tell you to be more manly about it. If like men like to keep social contacts, women typically don't. Right? Like unless there's a reason for it, like say there's a good reason for that kind of stuff, then there's a lot of the women, there's like they meet their people all the time. Like also like men actually depend, I think, a lot more on that kind of social support than women do. That's the thing. Like I think that's a trade-off. So like women typically can be more independent than men, but they have a harder time working with people that they don't like or they don't necessarily click with, or like that doesn't share the same values as them. You know, it's hard for them to get along with people that they, for whatever reason, dislike or does not share their morals or whatever. Like if there's no commonality between the person, then it's hard for them to get along if you guys are women. With men, it's not like that, but they also depend on those social supports a lot more. So that's kind of like, again, there's a lot of women who are like that, like men, and a lot of men who are like women. It's called being feminism, or being feminine and masculine. And some men consider it emasculating when they have to behave as a woman would, even if it's required for work. That's why they don't like to do that kind of stuff, which is like, that's another issue. That's not, I don't, anyway, interpersonal skills is about having good understanding about your relationship and how to improve it. And if you don't understand it, or if you can't really tell because your social skills aren't as adept as they should be or will be at that in the future, so you haven't really built your social skills up yet, you should attempt it. Like, try to improve on your relationship and see how things go for the first, I don't know, couple of months, right? See how the person is responding and if they actually enjoy doing that kind of stuff too, right? Usually, like, when your friends take up a new hobby and they're always like talking about the new thing, you either join in on them or you just kind of like treat it as a fad, right? So see how things go in that. Sometimes they actively support their friend by saying, I'm gonna do what you're doing to support you. That's kind of like what a lot of people do for their friends, but I don't know if that's always healthy. But yeah, so if you can't really tell if it's salvageable or not, I say, like, make sure that when you want to turn it around, you have to put a lot of effort, and it might take some money because you gotta go out and meet, not buy things, to do things with your friend, or like, you might actually have to like go out of your way to see your friend a lot more, or like your friend, whatever, that person, a lot more. Oh, also, I actually advise against blurring the boundaries between each specific relationship. So that's like, your mom's your mom, your dad's your dad, those are family members. Don't be friends with your family members. That's kind of, I'd advise against it. I don't think that's healthy. So your friends are your friends, your family is your family. Like, have those boundaries set and keep at it, you know? And like, your coworkers, your colleagues, your neighbors, those are separate people, separate groups of people, and separate relationships. It'll just make it easier for you to manage that just in the beginning. And then when you get older and you can kind of navigate around that kind of stuff, it's probably doable for you to be able to, I don't know, blur the lines a little bit, right? Like, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea, but that's only when you're like a really, really advanced level of that kind of stuff. Initially, you need to be able to kind of help yourself categorize these relationships and get like kind of a skill, or like kind of a leg up on how to go about those kinds of things. So it's not easy, honestly. Some people make it look effortless because they've had a lot of practice, and some people practice or get into that kind of stuff when they're kids because their parents actively put them in situations where they can actually navigate that kind of social stuff. So that kind of stuff would be something that not everybody has an experience or background in. So if you're learning it at a later age, it's still fine, it's doable. Just don't expect yourself to like improve your skills so quickly. And you should know that a lot of people who actually want to be friends with you or want to be in your life are already giving you a lot of like patience. So don't be afraid to like mess up or make mistakes or something, because I mean, with acquaintances, you should be a little concerned. With neighbors, definitely. But with your close friends or your family members or like your long-term classmates or something like that, they're gonna be kind of okay with it. I mean, classmates are an iffy thing. Your friends definitely gonna be okay with it. Your childhood friend or like people that you've known when you were growing up, they're also gonna be fine with that kind of stuff. And your family members will definitely be okay with that. But I don't advise you to practice on your family members, just because, like, again, you're blurring that line way too soon, and it gets harder and harder to recover from that kind of stuff, right? And it's not a game, okay? Your social life is something that you need to take seriously. So that kind of stuff is important, and also how to go about improving that kind of stuff. Don't forget, even if you don't notice a difference within the first few months, like, give it a year, 2 years. Some people know each other for like decades, okay? they do all that work to maintain that relationship, so they're in continual contact with each other for years. And no, that's not a married couple. That's what friends do. Okay, that's a friend. That's not a married couple. Married couples are a little different. Okay, a lot of their established relationship is based on sexual procreation. So their life is now surrounding their sexual procreation. So they're them having sex and how to raise kids around that kind of stuff. That's a married couple. Other than that, like each married couple, I'm pretty sure each person in the marriage has their own life and on their own set of friends. But when they get married, they kind of like negotiate, like, okay, so who are our priorities, because a large chunk of our time is now not going to be available for them. So a lot of times they have to meet in groups, or they're going to have to meet each other very infrequently. So that's kind of like, I mean, it's kind of like what are you bringing to the table? We gotta like kind of cut the fat here and like get down to the bare bones, the skinny of it all, or whatever. But yeah, typically people only got married because they needed like a partner and helping them move on with their life, their next phase of life, you know? That was back then. This currently not so much. Like back then they're like, I need somebody to hold property with me, and I need somebody to get an heir so that they can also receive my properties that I've collected over the years, so that they can continue to do that. And I believe that you'll be good at assisting me, or I can assist you in doing so. That's why they got married. Like sometimes they're like, I need a place to live and I kind of need some social life, and I can't live with my family for the rest of my life. You know, that would indicate some abnormal things going on, and at a certain age you need to move on. And you know, I haven't been able to make friends for whatever reason at that age, so marriage is the best way to go about doing that, to get out of the house. Some people did do that. That's a really bad way to go about it, but like at least there's a need for the marriage to be a thing. I mean, I don't know if that's gonna lead to a marriage. That's their reason for looking for marriage partners, but that doesn't mean you're gonna get married to that person. But anyway, interpersonal skills and buildings and stuff, you can attend as many seminars as you want, read up on any self-help book that you can get your hands on. Learn how to not take things personally. That's the key here. Okay, once you start taking everything personally, right, like your actual reputation depends on how the relationship improves or not, which it doesn't. Okay, if it does, if it's that kind of relationship, then you shouldn't be interpersonal skilling that. You should have already been at that place. Like I wouldn't personally do that, but I don't know, other people might be able to make something work. Again, there's a lot of different types of people out there. Also, as a side note, if you're ever like hunkered down or like worn out or like feeling depressed or like think that like nothing's ever gonna change about your financial situation, I just want to be very clear, you don't really get to decide that. Just like kind of like your social status when you're born, you don't really get to decide what your financial status is gonna be. And I'm not saying that it can't change. It's not set in stone. That's the great thing about it. Financial status is not set in stone, but your social status is, and who you are as a person is already set in stone when you're born. But the thing that isn't set in stone, right, is this thing called your financial status, which is depending on other people and availability and the people that already exist. You don't get to control who hires you, okay? And you definitely don't get to control what kind of salary they're gonna pay you. And you don't get to control the government regulations. Like, you don't get to decide any of those things. And yeah, it sucks. But that's currently how the system is working. And because of it, don't ever beat yourself up for it. I mean, I know a lot of people try to make fun of other people for that kind of stuff. They're trying to make themselves feel better that way, or trying to get like some sort of like a banter going that way, it's not okay. But if they can make it fun, then why not? You know, you can always banter about it or whatever, try to take jabs at each other. I just don't think it's a good idea. I mean, you gotta do it in a really nice way, in a good taste. Otherwise, it's gonna lead to you getting punched in the face. Right? But yeah, don't beat yourself up. Ever. My financial status, unless you were literally in debt because you just wanted to spend your entire life savings going on vacation without actually working. That kind of stuff, then like, yeah, you should probably do something about it. But anyway, other than that, like, you don't get to decide what kind of job you have, and you're very limited with your income. So that basically is able to dictate what you can and cannot do. And that's how people are kind of deciding your value to them as a whole against the large majority of the population. Yeah. And most people agree with that. Not all. Most. And it's not you as a person that they're valuing, it's your skill set and your experience and your qualification. That's what they decide on how they should pay you. And also the type of relationships you have had. All that put together is they're like, you are worth this much salary wise, based on all that kind of assessments. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to like, I think this is why a lot of people like to go racist with this kind of stuff, but it's really hard to like tell somebody there's something wrong with your mother and you need to do something about your relationships with your friends because it's incredibly unhealthy. Not that you guys are doing anything illegal, and that's affecting your social skills and how you build them and how you're socializing with your colleagues, which is making them uncomfortable. Again, you're not actually harassing them, but it's kind of weird for them and it's affecting their work a little bit. You're making it kind of weird. You can't say that to somebody. Like, it's illegal. So, like, I'm just, you know, most people just say, hey, like, they try to, like, make minor corrections for you. That's what women do. I don't know if anybody noticed, especially if you're an attractive woman. That's what they're known for. Okay, like, they kind of like do things here and there just a little bit. They're like, oh, so like they would like, you know, like when you're friends with somebody and like point out like, oh my god, like we should totally do this together, and then like you guys go out to a new club or go to new restaurants, and it kind of like puts it into your repertoire, right? Like your inventory of things that you know in the neighborhood and the places that you've been to, so you can talk about it, right? That's kind of what they do, like socially. So like they kind of like put you, like the way they treat you is kind of gonna put you at a place where you're just like gonna respond to what they are asking of you to respond to. Kind of like they can't say like you're kind of weird and your friends are freaking me out. But like that's only when like the relationship's already over, right? You just fucked up and it's sour now and you're like, fuck off, right? That's when they say that. You know it's over by then. I mean, it's over way before she even says that. But like, you should already know that. But anyway, other than that, so like it will be kind of like slide jobs, but enough for you to be able to do something about this. So let's say she like comments on your weight or something and it makes you feel kind of insecure, right? So like you kind of skip eating meal that day, and it kind of actually your friends are all going out to eat, and then you said that you're gonna stay in that day, and then you stop hanging out with your friends for a bit that time. And the next time you see her, she does the same thing, kind of, but in a different way. You don't really notice. And then you don't hang out with your friends again. And the next time you see your friends, you're kind of like acting a little aloof, but you just because you notice that they're being kind of weird about some stuff. And then that's how she gets you right there. Yeah, that right there when you're just like, oh, what the fuck? Yeah, it's because your friends were being weird to you and she saw that, so she wants you to see it. So she does that, and then you take some time away and you see that too. So that's kind of what that is. Well, that's what a lot of girls do this, okay? A lot of women. Let's say like she notices that you were eyeing like a new outfit or something, and like she knows that the color isn't good on you. She'd kind of like she'd be the one like saying let's go shopping, or like mention something about the color of the item, and like it would be enough for you to kind of stay away from it for a bit until you look at something else, and then you end up buying something else because you try both on and you're like, okay, this is a lot better. Like that's how she would be going about. It's shady, right? Because I've actually noticed all pretty women get very, very shady, or are shady. If you're shady, then you're pretty. That's what that means. Yeah, but that's what women do when they like see somebody and they don't know how to tell them. And they're like, I don't think it's appropriate for me to tell you this, but I'm just gonna make you feel bad until you realize it yourself. So that's it. Oh, look at Christy. He's so proud with his little burrs on his head. Finally got one chunk of it off and he was crying.